For today's story, we talk about the latest of one-time presidential hopeful Michael Avenatti, who has recently been convicted for bilking Stormy Daniels. Hello everyone, and welcome to Uncivil Law, where we learn through the misfortunes of others. As always, I hope you'll enjoy this legal content, and today will be the day I earn your subscription. But first, a huge shout out to this video's supporter, Aura. Aura is a company that can help you with identity theft protection and credit monitoring. 2021 has seen 1 billion records get hacked from major social media sites, cryptocurrency exchanges, phone companies, internet providers, and other sources. So what can you do to protect yourself? Aura is a new type of security service that helps to protect your online accounts, internet connection, and devices with one simple subscription. So how can you protect yourself? Well, go to aura.com/uncivillaw. When you use my link below, aura.com/uncivillaw, you'll get up to 40% off on all plans, plus a money-back guarantee for new subscribers if you're not fully satisfied, which I believe you will be. aura.com/uncivillaw to help protect you against the growing threats of credit card fraud and identity theft protection in this increasing digital age. For today's story, yes, it is one-time presidential hopeful Michael Avenatti. For a good 5 minutes there, or maybe 15, he was definitely super popular. He was on all the shows. I think he had a tent outside of CNN, basically, at one point. He was on so much. And there was talk of him being the person who would take down Trump. It was not to be. Michael Avenatti has since been convicted of some things. He's been convicted of extortion against Nike, and just now was convicted of cheating Stormy Daniels out of money, and is still facing other charges, which we'll discuss. Things have not gone well for Michael Avenatti or his hopeful. So let's go ahead and get started with this. Michael Avenatti has been found guilty of charges of wire fraud and aggravated identity theft for cheating a former client, adult film star Stormy Daniels, out of nearly $300,000 in book proceeds. Wire fraud is like one of the federal government's favorite charges because it usually applies and it's relatively easy to prove, all things considered. You know, you just need a communication over some sort of transmission medium, and you need to be communicating for the purpose of committing a fraud, and you're there. The jury spent 15.5 hours deliberating before returning a verdict on Friday afternoon. The wire fraud verdict carries a maximum of 20 years in prison, while aggravated identity theft carries a maximum mandatory term of imprisonment of 2 years. Now, it's worth noting here, of course, that Avenatti is now already a convict. He was convicted of extorting Nike. So in his criminal history score, he's no longer starting at ground zero. You know, he has a conviction under his belt, so that will increase the penalties that he will get. So, you know, there's all that. Avenatti, who stared straight ahead as his fate was read, was subsequently ordered to surrender himself to federal court authorities in California, because that's where he was convicted of the Nike thing, and he was on trial in New York, you know, for because that's where jurisdiction was for the book thing, right? So he's already been convicted in California, and California loaned him to New York, and now that he's been convicted, well, go back to California, because that's where your sentence is. Clark Brewster, who represents Daniels now, and hopefully isn't cheating Stormy as much as Avenatti was, told Fox News his client was relieved the nightmare was over. Is it though? The text communications between Stormy and Avenatti in real time was overwhelming proof of deceit and embezzlement. The forgery of her name and his concealed directive to wire money to him was irrefutable. Still, Mr. Avenatti possesses an uncanny ability to steadfastly deny his crimes and persuade others he was entitled to embezzle funds. Stormy is pleased the justice system has worked. Okay, so we've got an initial conviction. We seem to have some pretty good evidence of the wire fraud, text communications indicating the wire fraud, some fairly decent evidence along those lines. So does Michael Avenatti have any chances of appeal? Yes, a little bit. Let's discuss what those are. Jurors have indicated turmoil behind the scenes. In a note that was sent to the court on Friday, which was the date of the conviction, the jury foreperson told the U.S. District Judge that one of the juries was not going in on evidence, but basing her conclusions instead on all emotions. Avenatti immediately requested the judge to declare mistrial. Instead, the judge told the jury it must follow its pledge to base any decision on evidence. Earlier that same day, Furman declined Avenatti's previous motion for a mistrial, which the attorney had filed after Daniels appeared in an interview with a news broadcast. That doesn't make any sense, by the way. Stormy Daniels has First Amendment rights, and so I don't understand how that would be prejudicial to the trial. It doesn't make any sense. Furman called the motion beyond frivolous, and on Thursday, jury sent a notice that they were unable to come up with a consensus on wire fraud charge. Furman instructed them to continue deliberations, reminding the juries of the commitment that they made to work towards together. Okay, so there are some issues here. I don't ultimately think they will amount to much, but I don't think we can go quite to the level of beyond frivolous. So I'll disagree with Stormy's new lawyer on that one. We have two communications from the jury. One is an impasse, in which case the judge sends them back. This is not infrequent. This happens, and it can happen multiple times where the jury says we can't reach a verdict, and they send them back for further deliberation. So that alone isn't a problem, but you can imagine it coming up. And then we have this other one about this other juror acting on pure emotions instead of reasoning. Now, you could try to use that for a basis, but the problem is you can't really get to that in a real way. There's going to be no voir dire of the jury at this point, because anything is protected that happened in the jury room. So all you really have is this one jury note. Is emotions a reasonable basis to convict somebody? Well, we all use emotion to some degree, and ultimately they came to a unanimous verdict. So even if this one juror was coming to the conclusions on emotional reasons, the other ones apparently came to the decision for non-emotional reasons. A federal judge in Orange County has declared a mistrial in an embezzlement case against lawyer Michael Avenatti, saying prosecutors failed to provide him with documents. He needed to defend himself against charges he stole millions of dollars from clients. So we got a Brady violation, according to the district judge. So that's a problem. Now, when you have a Brady violation, the remedy is you give them the documents and you start over. It's not a get-out-of-jail-free card. The mistrial is a significant, if fleeting, victory for Avenatti, who is best known as a former lawyer for Stormy Daniels and also as a person who had a presidential campaign for about 5 seconds. Avenatti, of course, must still report to federal prison to start serving a 30-month sentence for the conviction from Nike. So this is totally separate, right? He's got many, many charges. Many, many exciting charges for Mr. Avenatti. He's got charges in California for Nike and extorting them, guilty. He's got charges in New York for cheating Stormy Daniels out of $300,000, guilty. And he's also got charges for more embezzlement against other people. Mistrial. But, try again. So the fates continue to show Mr. Avenatti that not all is well. And after that trial for the mistrial that we just talked about just now, there's still more and exciting charges. So as referring to in this article, there's also a pending charge in Santa Ana on bank fraud and failure to file tax returns. He's going to be going into courtroom for quite a while, not as a lawyer, but as a defendant. He's spending his time in the courtroom that he so loves. In the aborted California trial, Avenatti was charged with 10 counts of wire fraud, stealing $10 million from clients in 4 legal settlements, and concocting deceptions to hide the theft. And noting here that his law license has been suspended, as California decides whether or not they want to disbar him for, the multiple felonies. Going back to this charge that for the mistrial, the government's trouble stemmed from a 2019 seizure of servers from Avenatti's defunct law firm. To prevent prosecutors who'd be trying the case from seeing the law firm's confidential data, the Justice Department had a taint team. That's what they're calling it. They're calling it a taint team. Okay. The team was supposed to pass along all data to prosecutors that could properly be used for the case, including expense records that also had to be turned over at Avenatti. But the judge found that the team failed to search for all of the expense records, so there was other information on the servers that was not disclosed to Avenatti. So that brings us to the end of our discussion, but certainly not the end of Mr. Avenatti's criminal proceedings. So we've learned that Mr. Avenatti, having just been convicted of Stormy Daniels, is facing a potential 20 years. on top of the sentence he already received from Nike, 4 years. And then, of course, after that, we still got more exciting charges for bank fraud and even more embezzlement. So Mr. Avenatti is going to be in federal prison for quite a long time, and at least for the moment, that brings us to the end of the discussion of this case. Thank you so much for being part of the Uncivil Law family. If you enjoyed this legal education content, please hit the subscribe button. It really helps the channel grow. We appreciate your continuing support. Until later, my friends, cheers and goodbye.